Like, John Lennon's charismatic and cool, but you'd think you'd want to hang out with him. You wouldn't.
He'd annoy you after a while, yeah.
Well, he also just wasn't quite things didn't quite match up with the persona he gave out. Yeah. You know, he used to say, you know, what was it? Singing about like love and being nice to each other. You know, he used to beat his wife up.
Yeah, yeah, but I remember watching this on VHS because obviously with all DVDs and stuff, my dad had a video, like a VHS tape for like years, and he got some like weird little passion project where, because obviously we had like rows and rows of videos, because remember, like whatever came on TV, if you had a spare like videotape, because it's not like Sky, is it? Like you wouldn't, unless you had like a Radio Times, you wouldn't know what was coming on at that certain point. So if you had that spare VHS, like if Spinal Tap just came on, you'd be like, shit, I'm recording.
It was like catching a fish. Like there was something about it, like when you caught something on and you actually taped it.
Yeah.
And whenever you'd go back to that tape, you'd be like, oh yeah, and it would degrade over time, and you were like, fuck. And whenever you went back to it, there was something about the fact that it would start with like the end of the news, and you'd have to watch the same news anchor talking about like there was trouble in Palestine today, like the same time, and it's all dated in the 80s, and like there was something about capturing something and actually taping it.
Because you'd have like, to be fair, you'd have like ITV News, and remember like Trevor McDonald with his glasses, like really young.
Do you used to take the piss was when the news would come halfway through the film? What the fuck, man? That was such bullshit.
The first time I saw this, my dad said to me, because my dad had some weird like cataloguing project where he'd go through, he just wanted to know like what was on each tape.
Oh, okay.
So he just put it in me like, this is whatever film. And he'd be like, because some he'd have labels, some you'd like open it and there'd be like a white card in and you write what's on it. Yeah. But some were blank. So he was just looking through them, and he was like, oh, I found the 2 best films for us to watch. They're both mockumentaries. And I was like, what? I didn't even know what that was. So one was Spinal Tap. Yeah. I was like, this is fucking... Actually, I didn't actually grasp it because I was a bit too young.
How old were you? I was about to ask.
Probably 13.
See, you were lucky, man. I didn't get no film knowledge from my parents.
13. And I understood, like, he was proper laughing. And at this point...
Part of you as well is sometimes, even though you don't quite get it, you know it's funny.
Yeah. You get from that, like, you get that kind of vibe. The other one, this was like a mockumentary marathon. Slapshot. You ever seen Slapshot? So it's basically a mockumentary based on hockey. Okay. Where they're following around a hockey team. Oh, right, it's fucking hilarious.
Do you know what? I always heard about Slapshot. Heard it was funny. Knew it was a hockey movie. Didn't know it was a mockumentary.
It's just it's like a perfect example because hockey's just jokes. Like them fighting each other.
You know the way when you have a DVD collection, you don't do it now anyway because everything's streaming. But even back when you'd have it, I don't know if you were like me, but I would be so bad. There would be this weird sort of procrastination about not actually putting it on. Like if it came on telly, I'd watch it. But actually taking it out of the DVD and putting it in and being like, I'm going to watch The Good, The Bad and The Ugly now. I just wouldn't do it. And it'd be great to have just a bunch of blanks. Mix them up. They're your movies. You know all the movies you have, but you never know what it is. And you just take it out, put it in, and the movie starts. And once you're watching it, you're probably going to watch it.
But you know on Prime where it's like deals for Prime members, limited time. I can't remember what film it was, but I nearly clicked it because it was in HD. And obviously my DVDs that I have aren't Blu-rays, so they're really like the quality is not the best. And it's like, hang on, why don't you just not pay the 50p and just walk over to the shelf which is there and like put it in? But that's how lazy I'd gotten and so used to like streaming. Because it's just all you have to do is like go bing, bing.
Like it's mad how much content has changed even just in our lifetime. Like I remember not being able to find Boogie Nights by Paul Thomas Anderson on DVD. So I had to buy it on VHS off Amazon and get it sent. And you think that's so weird now where if I'm like, I want to see the original cut of Nosferatu, and if I can't find it by typing in the name in 10 seconds, I'm like, what the fuck? Like you can find anything so easily. It's ridiculous.
A couple films, I've had that with a couple films, films we've done for this. And I found myself getting so frustrated. I was there with a remote, like, what do you mean it's not there?
Yeah,
I think like the what's the samurai one we done?
fucking entitled.
Uh,
Harry Carey.
yeah, I found that so difficult to find. Like, and then in the end, you had to send me a link. But I do think we're missing.
Could just pay for it.
Yeah. I do feel like with this streaming stuff now, we've kind of like eliminated the nostalgia of it. Remember like going to HMV?
They're also just not as good quality. But yeah, I remember those days where you actually go in and have a look around, peruse. You know, you look through them and you just see random shite where you're like, oh, I do want to buy that now that it's here. Even though, and sometimes you're like, I'm probably never going to watch this, but I just want to buy it.
Because I remember, Declan, like years ago, me and my dad went to, because you know there used to be a HMV in Enfield.
Yeah.
And I
It
desperately...
used to be a HMV anyway.
Yeah, that's true. I desperately wanted to watch Scarface, but it was an 18. I went into HMV and I found it in its sick little box. And I remember like looking at it for ages, plucking up the courage. So I knew my dad was going to just be like, it was good because I was with my dad. If I went up to my mum, she'd be like, I don't know, is there shooting in it? Is it violent? And then I went up to my dad and I remember plucking up the courage for ages, like, yeah, he'll let you get this. And I went over and I was like, Dad, can I get this Scarface? Because it had a big, like, in the bottom right corner, a big 18 like, certificate. And he just looked at it and was like, yeah.
Oh, he probably had to hide a tear. He was so proud, man. If your really young son comes up and was like, "Can I get Goodfellas?" You'd be fucking delighted.
Yeah,
Do you know what? You just made me think as well while we're on this topic. Isn't it weird to think, literally, and before VHS, I guess, watching an 18 during the day just wasn't an option.
No, I know.
You literally couldn't do it. Like, it just, like, you'd have to wait to the late hours to watch anything remotely adult.
I never went to Blockbuster because there was only one in Southgate and it was just a bit long. But we had our own shop in...
I preferred the little, like...
No, yeah, we had our own shop in Palmer's Green called Video Fair.
Right.
So you went down there and then I just used to love it on a Friday. You'd have no idea of what film you're going to watch, but you'll just go down there and peruse for ages and then just get one and like settle on it. And I just feel like that whole nostalgia's gone now. You can just get whatever you want this second.